Hello, Chris England here once again, and time to do another Special Heroes banner. This time I'm going to go with what we were originally going on with the Pirates banner. So we follow from Phantom Thieves to Pirates. And as the Special Heroes enter, we start with the Pirate King of the Red Sky, Surtr, as a Lance Armory unit. So we have the illustration as Sotaro. And for our voice actor, we have Tessho Genda. So some of the better roles that I can think of for Mr. Genda are Kurama, the nine-tailed fox from Naruto. We have Takeda Shingen from Sengoku Bazara. We have Hedoro, the green giant Oni-like alien from Gintama, the one introduced where everyone's sneezing and everyone's more sneezing. We also have Yutaka Goda from My Love Story. Probably the best, not necessarily the best, but the most interesting role that I found that Mr. Genda has done is the Japanese dub of Tigger from the Winnie the Pooh series as well as Kingdom Hearts. So, befitting of Surtr, we start with his Menace. At the start of turn, if there is a foe within 4 spaces of unit, the closest unit gets Spectrum -5, and this unit gets Spectrum +5 until the end of their turns. We also have the Crafty Fighter. If units at HP is 25% or more, and the opponent initiates battle, he performs a guaranteed follow-up, and then the foe gets -1 cooldown count per attack. We also have another ideal skill. This time is Defense Resistance. Not a huge amount new. If the unit's HP is 100% or has a bonus at the start of the battle, during battle it's +7 to defense and resistance. And if both conditions are fulfilled, it's an additional 2 to each. But his best thing is the Seer Lance. Of course, we have the cooldown count -1, and then if the opponent attack is initiating combat or has HP that is greater than or equal to 75% at the start of combat, then during battle, the opponent gets attack and defense -6, gets their follow-up denied, and if they... Or actually, no, it's not a denial of follow-up. It's if they can make a follow-up during battle, the first attack's damage is reduced by 75%. So we have quite a tanky unit. We have defensive buff. We have guaranteed follow-up buff. We have damage reduction, debuffs, and debuffs. This is as usual for what Surtr did based on what his original form had somewhat similarly. Next we have Seized Shadow. So we have Naesala. So Naesala is our red unit this time a red beast flyer, following up from his blue beast flyer in the GHB and Grail shop. For art, we have Clover K, and for his voice actor, we have Kazuyuki Okitsu. Probably some of the better roles that I know of is Fat Gum from My Hero Academia. We have Kuhai from Dragalia Lost. We have Jonathan Joestar from the 2014 anime of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And then we have Archimedes from Fate Grand Order. This time we don't start out with anything very big. We have Glimmer, Attack Speed Solo 4. We have Speed Defense Near Trace. But we also have the Stall Ploy. At the start of turn, if there are whatever foes that are in cardinal direction of this unit that have less HP, gain Stall. And Stall changes anything that says movement +1 to gravity, basically. So he is, and then we also have the crossbone claws or crossbone claw. We have once again cooldown count -1. We have the another solo bonus where if he's alone during combat, the foe gets -6 to both speed and defense, and he gets a self-null follow-up, so his follow-ups cannot be denied. And then if he's transformed as well, he performs his follow-up attack directly after his own attack. So it's desperation as well as self-null follow-up. And then his bonus as a flying beast is when he's transformed, he gets movement +1 and attack +2. So we do have something of a very interesting kit. In general, the only thing that stands out is the stall ploy. Stall ploy is a great skill, but I do feel like this is one of those cases where it's more trying to prevent people from escaping his wrath as opposed to trying to buff any of his stats. We are seeing a lot more movement-based skills, so movement +1 skills. So we are seeing cases where stall ploy is getting more and more useful in general. Units like legendary Sigurd or the most recent brave Seliph, they are going to have their skills nullified and reduced down to 1, which is a very dangerous thing for those specific units. But I do feel like some kind of a rain would have actually been a bit better, but I don't personally know since I have not pulled them yet.
もらっていくぜ。
ラグズもベオクもみんな笑ってる。
Vika. So Vika once again fills our colorless slot as a 4-star focus. This time she is a colorless beast, drawn by Naruse Uroko and voiced by, once again, Sayuri Yahagi. So I covered her when I did the Phantom Thief banner. So continuing roles, she is Kath. She is also Murasaki from Senran Kagura. She is Sakuya from Sword Art Online, and she is from Steins Gate Maho Hyajo.
いい光景ですね。
So once again, the 4-star focus is not going to be as impressive as some of the other ones, but we do have some very interesting starting point. We do start with Glacies. We have Speed Res Solo 3, as well as Sabotage Attack 3. So the biggest thing on her is that her A skill is what's the 4-star tier 3 skill, whereas the sabotage is stuck to the 5. So this means that if any time that there's a way to pull more Vikas, that means that there's going to be more available SR solo fodder. But we also have her Ebony Black Talon. So at the start of turn, if there's a foe that is next to another foe, so if two foes are adjacent to each other, as well as either one of them having less resistance than this unit, they minus defense and resist -7. And then of course she gets the bonus where at the start of battle, if the foe's HP is 75% or greater, she gets a attack, speed, and resistance +5. And then once again, as a transform, she gets +1 movement and +2 attack. So the only thing that she realistically is missing is a speed ploy. As her sabotage attack is covering the attack debuff, and then for defense and resistance, that's in her weapon. So the only stat that she can not hit on base is speed, meaning that she is very much so a good debuff unit. Possibly instead of using the alone skill, the solo skill, it's better to use something that upgrades her resistance. So Stillwater is one of the best examples, as it tanks her already very low defensive score, and it also buffs her attack. The other option is just flat resistance +3. It's not as flashy, but it is an option. The other option could also be Fortress Res 3, just buffing her resistance by 5. Having a resistance boon, putting her at 47, does actually put her dangerously high. So subtracting the weapon's buff to 3 buff to res, that still means that she has 44 base on a boon.
お宝はどこです？
And next for our duo, we have the Fair Pair Pirate.
海賊の真似事など楽しいじゃない？
We have Hinoka paired with Camilla. So in this case, we do actually have some characters that have been voiced before, but for Kinoko, we have her covering the green color. This time she is a flyer. So that means that Surtr is the only one that does not have flying status as a pirate. So we have the art by Yoshiro Ambe. And then for our voice actresses, we actually have 2 of them. This is starting with Hinoka being voiced by Kaori Nazuka. So Invisible Girl and Mount Lady from My Hero Academia. We have Nunnally Lamperouge V Britannia from Code Geass. Charlotta from Grand Blue Fantasy. And then Miyu Eldefelt from the Fate series. For Miss Miyuki Sawashiro, we have Catalina, also from Grand Blue Fantasy. We have Sinon from Sword Art Online. We have Mordred and Florence Nightingale from Fate Grand Order. For Genshin fans, she is Raiden Shogun. And then for some other, I'll go for some more common known ones. She is Suruga Kambaru from the Monogatari series, and then a personal favorite of mine, Horn Skull from Seraph of the End. And so, once again, we do see another unit with attack speed push 4, which is very unfortunate, but I do not personally mind it as much because this is not at the point where the attack speed push was supremely overly used. It was probably still at the 15 to 20 units. But we do also have Harsh Command Plus. We have Speed Res near Far Trace. And then a brand new range skill. This time it's defense and resistance. But her claim to fame has to be her weapon, her Mermaid's Bow. So in addition to being a flyer killer, she is also an armor killer, as well as just gaining a flat +3 to her attack. And then at the start of combat, if her HP is at least 25% or more, she deals adaptive damage and gets attack speed +6 during combat. So once again, a very, very useful, not super rare skill of adaptive damage and the bonus is that this adaptive damage is not based on range. So unlike Dragonstones, which are forced to battle with with resistance for units that are range 1, this unit only has that HP condition. But she also has a different one if she's attacking, if she initiates combat, and not only has more speed than the foe, but also is facing a blue foe. So if she has triangle advantage, she performs a brave attack. So what I am seeing is the main thing bonus of her is that adaptive HP condition adaptive damage. The 2x attack is very useful in and of itself. But having the 2 and the speed condition isn't that high, but having that triangle advantage isn't really the biggest advantage that I can think of specifically. So if this was instead maybe like a higher speed condition but had no here, this would actually be a much more dangerous unit.
Inuku.
And then we also have her duo skill. So for flying allies within three columns and 3 rows of unit, those units and this unit gain attack speed +6 and movement +1. And then under the same length, foes using either bow, dagger, tome, or staff, or having anything except flying, so infantry, there's armor, and cavalry, they gain gravity. So the effect on the foes isn't really that big of a deal. The gravity itself is annoying, but it's not the worst thing. The biggest thing is having that movement buff, as well as the buff for the attack speed buff. Now note that this actually will not be refreshed. It's only once per round. Unlike some other cases where you'll see like it can be used multiple times per map just with its own cooldown, this one is locked to being once per turn, and or once per map. And the movement +1 in and of itself is definitely a very dangerous thing, especially for flying units who have no terrain restrictions.
その服かわいいわ。そうか。いただいちゃうわ。かっこいいわよ。はっ。
And then we do have our Tempest Trial unit, Lifis. So finally, we have some more support for Thracia 776. So he is a Axe Infantry unit. He is drawn by Otorihara or Tries Incorporated, and his voice actor is Atsushi Kakehashi. So I did look much more of a newer voice actor. The only things I could realistically recognize, I've played Luminous Arc 2, and he voices Richter. I have not seen Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, but he voices Flint Lockwood for the Japanese dub. And then for an older role, we have Suikoden 4's Kenneth. So he starts out with the swap. He has Wind Sweep as I believe this is his 4-star focus ability. So he does actually have the ability to pass on Wind Sweep 3 as a 4-star. He also comes with Wind Boost, but he has the Helmsman's Axe. So on attack, he just debuffs the opponent's Spectrum -4. And once again, we don't actually have the Spark for this banner because this was before they decided to do that. So in terms of value, right out of the box, I do believe that Naesala's kit has a lot of value, and I'm going by Surtr's. If you're going by Surtr, is probably an easier one for either an armory class or prep for transfers, because there is a unit that has the defense res ideal in her kit, as well as being an armor, so she can take on the crafty fighter. For just basics, Naesala's kit is very, very good. The stall ploy is nice, having 2 skills that effectively hit resistance and damage output, as well as having a self-null follow-up, as well as a transformation desperation. Is a very beautiful thing. The only problem with Naesala, once again, because there are only 4 slots for inheritance, it's very, very hard to attempt to transfer as much as possible. It's definitely doable if you have manage to get 2 Naesalas, it is definitely possible to attempt to get 2 sets of the skills, but you would have to have some kind of basis with the attack speed solo. So what you do is you would do attack speed solo 3 from a different unit, then the remaining 4 and either the near trace or the stall ploy, and then the remaining skill if possible. For just common value, for like a really good debuffer, you have Vika's kit, just because just by adding a speed ploy skill, she hits every single stat by at least 5, which means that the debuffs will actively help other units. Her magic is high enough that she will actively hit pretty much every single unit as long as they're within the conditions. In terms of just plain value, if they ever do decide to rerun this as a like easier to pull on banner, Hinoka is definitely very good to pull. I would definitely replace the push because it does actively discourage her from fighting in actual battles, just because you're on a time limit for the bow's skill. Probably in this case, what would be better is attack speed ideal, maybe like speed defense ideal is an option. Just something that adds speed to her as a bonus. Or catch is also an option, but it does mean that you will have to have another unit that can debuff. So Vika has an option. There are plenty of options that add for debuffs. And then Lifis being the focal point of the Tempest trial, being that he is a free unit, he is very, very buildable, but his starting kit does leave a lot to be desired. The Wind Sweep is best for units that have relatively middling speed. Like they have fast enough, or they have some kind of no follow-up in their kits. So personally, what I would say is that he is very useful. He's just more useful for the Wind Sweep fodder. But that's what I think of this banner. If you have any other comments, feel free to leave them in the section below, and I hope to see you again another time. Thank you. Okay.